you are excited to implement STEM in your classroom or school building, but maybe you're feeling short on time or you don't have enough training to plan effective lessons or even get your school on board, whatever that looks like for you. I definitely hear you. I have been in those exact same situations at various points in my career as a classroom teacher and also when I was a STEM teacher. So I completely understand where you're coming from. And I hear it all the time from you guys as well in my Instagram DMs and also in my email. So I definitely hear you and here to help provide you support as always. And today's guest, Nichole Austion, can resonate with what you're going through as well. She works with an organization that can help support your needs. And talking with Nichole, it was just so powerful because the National Math and Science Initiative, also as NMSI, where Nichole is their vice president of public affairs, her philosophies and the things that she was talking about and what the organization stands for really aligns with what I believe STEM education should be. And so we had a really, really awesome conversation. And it's one of those situations in an interview where you're just so glad that this is being recorded. There were some technical difficulties, but we're just so glad it's recorded because there's some really powerful stuff that you'll take away from our conversation. Nichole holds an engineering degree and focuses on STEM advancement, orchestrates strategic initiatives, bridges marketing and government relations to amplify NMSI's impact nationwide. Nichole's experience stems from global technology firms, and also she drove a multi-million dollar revenue through innovative marketing strategies. She's also the author of Miles and the Math Monsters, which she does talk a little bit about. And I'm really excited for you to hear that part as well. The whole thing is great, but also hear about that part too. In her book, it's a children's book that transforms math into a friendly presence, encouraging children to see it as a helpful companion intertwined with their everyday environment. Like I said, I'm so excited for you to hear today's interview and all the great takeaways you're going to get for it in our STEM in Action series. And so sit back, enjoy, and maybe take a few notes along the way. Welcome to the Elementary STEM Coach Podcast, a show that'll help you with lesson ideas, systems, and actionable tips to apply to your classroom. I am your host, Naomi Meredith, a former classroom teacher turned current STEM teacher and coach. With over a decade of experience teaching and a master's degree in STEM leadership, I am here to coach you throughout the year to help you gain back more time to create innovative experiences for your students. Grab your earbuds and let's get started. All right. Well, thank you, Nichole, so much for being here today. We were chatting a little bit before we hit record. And once you guys watch the video version of this, Nichole has the best glasses on right now. They are beautiful. She's so beautiful. And then her glasses just accentuate that, but they're bright red. They're so cute. They're so cute. So you guys have to check out the video once that's posted. But thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so pleased to be on your podcast today.
I'm very excited to get into what we're going to chat about today. But before we do that, if you mind thinking about you and just how you support STEM education and your background.
Absolutely. My name is Nichole Austion. I'm the Vice President of Public Affairs for the National Math and Science Initiative. National Math and Science Initiative is a STEM solution provider, and we provide excellent quality STEM professional development for teachers in grades 3 through 12. I am a STEM woman in STEM. I have an engineering degree from Howard University and an MBA from the University of Texas at Austin, which I thought at one point took me out of STEM. But the fact that I have spent 20 years in technology companies made me realize that I am a woman in STEM and that I have spent my entire career doing that. In the last 6 years, I have been affiliated with the education industry. I spent about 2 years with a charter management organization working as their director of marketing, and I've been with the National Math and Science Initiative for 4 years. I'm also a mother and a mother of a teenage son who has a little bit of math anxiety and is also neurodiverse.
Well, I love how all of your experiences have blended together, and I'm sure help you so much with what you're currently doing with the organization that you are a part of. Because definitely having your background in STEM and then you worked in those companies and now helping out teachers with great training, which is definitely needed, hence why this podcast exists. I taught in a STEM classroom for 5 years and had limited supplies, zero curriculum. I personally didn't have a background in STEM. I ended up getting a master's in it, but I think it is so important with what you're doing and supporting teachers and um, just with great high quality professional development. So, types of things with your professional development do you guys really focus on in terms of STEM? Like, what are the types of things that you really hope teachers will gain from your program that you're involved in?
That is such a great question, Naomi. So, at the National Math and Science Initiative, about 80% of our employees are former teachers. And being former teachers, they understand what quality professional development is and what professional development without quality is. And so we really want to focus in on making sure that number one, we create community amongst the teachers. As a matter of fact, we are getting ready to have our content workshops in the Fort Worth area where we'll have over 500 STEM teachers, and in Norfolk, in the Virginia Beach area, sorry, excuse me, Virginia Beach area, where we'll have over 300 STEM teachers. And so, number one is we want to create that community. We want teachers to understand that they're not alone in the classroom. Secondly, we want to make sure that we have excellent content and pedagogy. We know that a lot of teachers come to STEM with a literacy lens, and they need the
Mm.
content and the pedagogy to be solid in their minds and build that confidence in them because there's so many other things to deal with in the classroom. Classroom management is one of my
Yes.
things that I hate the most, right? But if you
Yeah.
have that solid content and pedagogy knowledge, then you can focus in on other things within the classroom. And then thirdly, and certainly not
Mhm.
any less important than the other two, are really creating a culture of STEM literacy. And we define STEM literacy as individuals who are critical thinkers, who can apply concepts from science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and the humanities to understand complex problems, innovate around those problems, and collaborate with others to solve them. And what we want to emphasize is that that's not just a teacher thing, right? That's a school culture thing.
Yeah.
That's a curriculum thing.
Mhm.
That's a career awareness thing. So we tend to put all of those things into our content workshops so that teachers have a broad view of, and leaders have a broad view of
Mhm.
how to create those STEM literate cultures in their schools, in their districts, and in their states.
Mm. I think that's very important. And I think can be really tricky depending on what school you are at and even who your admin is. For me personally, I had an admin who was super supportive of STEM and very excited about it and just that type of thinking. And then had an admin where that was not the case. Then they never came into my classroom. So um, I think that's really, really important as well. So for people that might not have a strong STEM culture or have that type of support, what types of things does your program recommend for getting started and creating that type of community and support?
Absolutely. Thanks for that question. So, we really do try to partner with districts and states in order to provide that STEM literacy culture. But if you are a teacher in an environment that does not have that support, one of the ways you can really start doing that for your students is to present them with real world problems in the classroom. I think if you take a look at your teaching team, and
Mhm.
you can work with your teaching team and present real world problems, things around climate change, how to grow food in a floodplain, how to get supplies to refugees. Those are examples of lessons that you can use cross disciplinary, interdisciplinary, and ways that you can start kind of introducing some of that critical thinking and problem solving in the classroom. Another way that you can do that is to perhaps approach your administration about becoming a trainer, right? So train the trainer model.
Mhm.
So can I, teacher A, go and be trained on how to proliferate STEM literacy in our school and then bring that back, right? That may be something that you can propose to your administration in order for them to kind of see the benefits. Sometimes they might want to stick their toe in the water, just test it out a little bit,
Mhm.
and then broaden that type of program. The other thing I think is critically important is really understanding the careers that we need in STEM. We are woefully short and will be woefully short for many decades to come in
Mhm.
terms of STEM professionals that we have. So get yourself well versed in what career options we need to staff up on here in the United States and globally, and maybe hold a career fair. Introduce your students to different types of careers. And you can make that interdisciplinary as well.
Yep.
But make sure you're exposing those kids to all of the breadth and depth that they could potentially have within the world of STEM. So those are just a few ways that you might be able to start.
You are getting me so excited because, okay, yes, like 100%. Um, I'm so glad you mentioned this because I was a classroom teacher for 6 years before getting into STEM, and my school did this. They did have like a train the trainer type of model. And we really focused on math that year, but we started doing that with technology. And at the time, it was technology, not so much STEM, but still that project-based learning. Um, so I 100% that's what we did. And then our teams, we had co-planning times and we did plan those project-based learning experiences. And one of them, even like your examples are so real and they're so true, and kids don't even know those exist. And even things that happen in your own school. We did even the kids planned our one of our parties, our class parties, our fall party. And we actually used the data that we were learning about graphing and number lines and line plots. We used the data for planning the part, which was pretty
Love it.
cool.
I love it.
Um, but yeah, so glad you said that because it can work. I've been in a school where it works, but also the STEM careers, girl. I got a whole other podcast about STEM careers for kids.
That's
A
fantastic.
whole other one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you guys haven't heard, it's the STEM Career Quest podcast, and I interview people in STEM and have done a whole series on this podcast about STEM Career Day. So I'm so glad we're aligned with this because I'm not just making this stuff up. Nichole is saying the things that are here, guys. This is real, real. This works.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'll tell you, like with this generation too, I love the idea of kind of that flipped classroom that you talked about. Because
Mhm.
as we all, probably experience, these kids, especially when it comes to technology, they're so adept at such a young age. And what a great way to get them involved in their own learning.
Yeah.
To present them with a project-based lesson that can flip that classroom and have them teaching their peers or have them teaching you
Yeah.
about technology and having them presenting them with a real world problem that they can tap Alexa for within ethics. But how can we how can we really engage them in the world that they're really going to be growing up um, in a way that helps them to understand the linkages between what they, like and love about STEM and those critical skills that they're going to be building throughout the lesson.
really more, and what you sounds like with the program, the things that you're doing is more cross-curricular instead of being an isolated, we are making this project. The end, like everything kind of blends together and using all of those skills. Is that what you guys really focus on?
So we do want to have that interdisciplinary approach. We also want to
Hmm.
make sure that we are helping teachers in terms of vertical teaming, right?
Mm.
And this was not a thing that I was aware of, having not been a formally trained educator. But you may sit, and you know this, you may sit in the third grade.
Hmm.
You don't have any idea what those kids need to
Yep.
know in the eighth grade.
Hmm.
So, what we'd like to focus on, as well as the interdisciplinary nature of what we train, we also want to focus on that vertical teaming.
Yeah.
If you're sitting in a district in elementary school, you need to know what those kids have to know when they get
Yeah.
in middle school. You have to have that communication along that vertical team. And it doesn't
Hmm.
even have to, although we'd like for it to cross from elementary to middle, middle to high, but sometimes just within
Yeah.
elementary school,
Yeah.
right?
True.
Just have to know, what do these kids absolutely have to know in order to be successful in the next grade, in the next grade, in the next grade. And everything that we teach in terms of our professional development is mapped back from AP standards. Now, that doesn't mean
Mm.
every kid is going to take an AP class, right?
Yeah.
But it's mapped from AP standards so that you
Mm.
understand as a teacher, if I this kid can grasp this, they can then perform in an AP class and they
Hmm.
can be ready to transition into a college level course.
Hmm.
So we really want to make sure that that's solid in the minds of our teachers as they look to scaffold skills throughout the
Yep.
year.
That is so important too, that yes, you're doing these really cool lessons, but why are you doing it? Like, how is this connecting to the bigger picture? What standards are you relating this to? Because I hear that too when I talk with teachers and have done like professional development and group coaching. And even when I did coaching in my school, even classroom teachers might not always know what standards they're supposed to be teaching. And so it is important if you're doing, even if you're doing hands-on things and engaging kids, it has a purpose and there's a reason why we're doing this. Like it's a whole big thing. And so the standards, like maybe it's annoying, but it is important to understand what is this rooted in? How is this connected? You're not teaching to the test. It's that can they achieve what's going to be coming in the years to come. So I'm so glad that you guys see that. When you work with teachers or even things that you have seen, are there any specific projects or cool things that you've done with teachers that they've really enjoyed and like the STEM and project-based learning?
Yeah, the cool things that we do are really hands on. I
Mm.
love watching
Hmm.
some of the math and the science teachers work with our teachers. At one of our recent new teacher academies here in Atlanta, we had a fabulous coach who was teaching about measurement in the middle
Mm.
grades. And as we went out into the foyer, all the teachers and the coach were out there. They were measuring things. I mean, they had actual projects that they were taking on and they would take back into the classroom potentially. And they were really thinking critically about how the project could be um, executed. And it was like they were the kids. It was beautiful,
Cool.
right? But they were
Yeah.
so engaged in, making sure that, they had the appropriate directions, that they, where directions were missing, they were able to use those critical thinking skills. So I really like the fact that our coaches, who are current classroom teachers, which is wonderful, really provide lessons that are hands on
Mhm.
for our teachers so that they can experience being a student as well as have experience being the instructor while they're doing their professional development. And we've also partnered with some fabulous organizations who are corporate organizations who want to provide information and resources to students. We currently work with Deloitte in their Smart Believers Factory project, where they provide rovers to our
Ooh,
school. We develop the curriculum behind that particular program. And that's fun because
well,
it's a little rover
yeah,
robot, and
yeah.
all of the curriculum is standards aligned, but it's all
Mhm.
about getting that rover working. And it was fun to see the teachers doing that too, playing with
Does
that.
it look like a Mars rover? Does it look like a real rover?
It looks like a little rover, and there are exercises to help lights blink and get it actually moving and put it together. So we really love having some of our corporate partners who are leaning into that investment in STEM education, and leaning into that quality professional development coming to us, because they know that our program is curriculum agnostic, customizable, but it's a program that teachers love, right? And that's the key,
Yeah.
right? We want teachers to love the professional development that we provide. And let's face it,
Hmm.
9 times out of 10, professional development is not fun, but we want to make it fun and applicable for
Oh, yeah.
our.
Oh, absolutely. And we know, I mean, if the teacher's bored, like, do they really want to teach what they're seeing? I would want to teach about a rover, though,
Mhm. It's
for
exciting.
sure. Um, so one thing with teachers, maybe you see this too, because I know you have all sorts of teachers, like classroom teachers, and maybe some who teach STEM. Um, in some schools, like I know there's teachers who listen to this, they don't have a STEM teacher, and that's okay. But one thing I really hear is with the time, the limited time, and sometimes the projects are too long. Are there things that you guys recommend? Like, there are a lot of teachers who listen who only see their kids once a week for 1 hour. They see the whole school within the week. And so these longer projects they really want to do, but then they don't have a lot of time. They're like, I only see them for 1 hour, and then I'll see them for 1 hour next week, and the kids forget. And how do I store everything? Are there projects you have in mind or things that you guys recommend where they are still doing these high level things, but just in a shorter amount of time?
Yeah, I think that is really where the interdisciplinary nature and teaming within the schools is going to be critically important. Because if you can take a portion of a social studies lesson, right,
Mm,
and you can
mm-hmm.
make it applicable, design a lesson in science or design a lesson, in math, probably not the right example,
Yeah.
but biology, or design a
Yeah.
lesson in chemistry that kind of goes along with that particular social studies lesson, you might be able to have more traction with those
Mm,
students. And then working in your grade level team to integrate, some of the concepts and things that you want to teach in your particular STEM
mm.
class into that history class or that social studies class. And look, don't ignore physical education. Don't ignore,
Yeah.
some of your extracurricular types of activities. Make sure that your learning, especially within STEM, is interdisciplinary, because there's so many applications and so many ways to connect the dots for those
Hmm.
those students. So try as much as you can to work as a team if you only have that short period of time.
Yeah.
And then once again, make sure that you're doing things that could be really impactful, especially as it relates to culturally relevant education. Talk about these
Mm,
different cultures, ethnicities, gender identities that are STEM
hmm.
professionals, right? Try to bring in STEM professionals from your local um,
Yeah.
companies to talk to the kids, right?
Hmm.
Because there's
Yes.
nothing like seeing somebody in a profession, talking to somebody in that profession to kind of spur that imagination about what a child could be.
Hmm. That's really, really good advice. And I love that too, because I think, well, not that I know when I was coming from a classroom to being a STEM specials teacher, I felt very isolated where I don't I had a team, PER in music. However, I didn't know what the teachers were doing. I did co-teach for a while, but I think that's really helpful because if you only see them once a week, like you said, that what they're doing in their regular classroom can help build that background knowledge. Um, and even too, I know some teachers. have like it's just a lot teaching science and don't not teach science, but maybe you could take on, oh, maybe I can have a different STEM twist. Like what I tried to do with my projects that were standards based and having a STEM perspective. Like maybe you're learning about life cycles, but now we're going to create a 3D model of the life cycle that can be printed on our 3D printer.
Right.
So making those connections, I think, is so important because we're not teaching in silos. Like it might be a different room, but we're all on the same team.
That's right. That's right. It's very important to remember that. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay. So what I wanted to ask you, do you have any fun projects that you might be working on that might be helpful for teachers to hear about? Your organization you're a part of does amazing things, but is there anything in particular that you have going on that you want to share?
I do have a project that I'm working on. So you can probably see a little bit of it in the video. I just produced and published a book called Miles and the Math Monsters. And it is all about a young man, a little boy named Miles, who has a bit of math anxiety. And as most teachers and educators know, math was the 2023 word of the year designated by Education Week.
Mhm.
And I
Mm.
was inspired to write this particular book because I had a very math intensive journey as an engineer. There, math, I didn't have a choice, but math be interdisciplinary. You showed up everywhere when
Yeah.
you're in school, right? And I have a child who struggles with math. And so I've had to be fairly creative in trying to get him to understand certain concepts. He struggled a little bit with working memory. And so we utilized things that he loved. So he is a Fortnite fanatic, right? And he's really good.
Oh.
All right. So to get him to kind of understand the concept of addition and subtraction, he's in the game. And if he's in the game
Mm.
and he's one of seven players left, okay, so if you're one of seven players left, how many players
Mm.
then do you have to eliminate? Six. He could come up with it right away, right? So utilizing things that are in his everyday life to really get him to understand the concepts of addition and subtraction, multiplication, and then building upon his strengths. Now, I will tell you, he will struggle with certain concepts, but he does exponents like a champ. And most people don't. So he
Ooh.
does exponents.
Yeah, no, that's a hard, I'm like, that's a
It's a hard.
good skill.
Yes, he's really, really good with exponents, and all of the operations with exponents. But really, I was inspired to write the book because of him. You know, we were kind of on this opposite ends of the
Mm.
spectrum. I've had all this math. He struggles with math, and I wanted to show, young children that you don't have to be afraid of numbers. Numbers are everywhere. Math is a language, and it's a language that we're all going to be using for the rest of our lives. And that may
Mhm.
look scary on a board, but it doesn't look scary when you're ordering 2 scoops of ice cream or when you're counting players on the basketball court, the ones who are on the bench versus the ones who are playing. It's not scary when you look at the number of trees in your local park. It's not scary when you recognize that numbers are everywhere and math is everywhere and it's a part of our lives. And so that was the inspiration for writing the book. I'm hoping that there will become a series of books um, around
Oh,
STEM. So that's one of my projects.
yeah. That's a great book. I know teachers, especially in elementary, we love using books and using that as a good talking point. And that's a great book for any time of year, but especially for back to school when we're talking about growth mindset and how do we think about through problems, especially math and how math can be scary, but we're all math people. So um, I I love that. Please put that in the show notes so teachers can grab it for their back to school bookshelves.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you would love to share that I missed out on, or anything else that you think teachers should know?
I think what really I want to emphasize is the fact that, you're not alone, teachers. um, Especially when we talk about the National Math and Science Initiative. We are here to help you build the content and pedagogy that you need. We understand that teaching is a valuable profession and we treat it as such, right? And I know there's so many challenges in the classroom these days, but I want teachers to understand that if they're looking for quality STEM professional development, they have allies, right? You have allies outside of the National Math and Science Initiative, but certainly with our organization as well. And on our website, which is nms.org, we have free lessons that teachers can download. So if you go to our website, go to the resources page, we have a wealth of free lessons that you can utilize in your classroom. And this is really for teachers in grades 3 through 12. We also have culturally responsive lessons that we've put together with partners like 3M and the Lyda Hill Institute. So check out our website. Can't hurt to have a free lesson, something to help you build that STEM literacy culture in your school and in your classroom.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing those. And definitely, if teachers want to dive in this summer, if you're chilling this summer, look at it during back to school. That's fine too. But we'll link all of that for sure. But we appreciate your insight so much, Nichole, and what you're doing, helping support teachers through your book and also the organization that you're a part of. And thank you so much for all of your insight today.
Thank you, Naomi. I really appreciate you having me on your platform.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Elementary STEM Coach Podcast. I would love to connect with you over on Instagram at NaomiMeredith_ or send me an email to elementarystemcoachpodcast@gmail.com. Also, make sure to check out my website, NaomiMeredith.com, to see all the show notes from today's episode and shop my K-5 STEM resources. Any questions you have, needs for resources, or ideas for episodes, get in touch. I'll talk to you soon.